it was a targeted attack. In sport, the NRL has offered injured Knight star Alex McKinnon a job for life. And a look at today's weather for you. Cool in the south, showers easing in the southeast and dry in the west. Now, Sportsline with Paul Gregg is coming up in just under 15 minutes' time, but we begin this morning with some sad news. Legendary Australian news presenter Ian Ross has died at the age of 73. He'd been suffering from pancreatic cancer.
Later, two witnesses testified to having their cars stolen.
He started out as young Ian Ross.
Away you go. Hello. Hello.
And grew up to be Roscoe, the gentlemanly king of wit on the Today Show.
Have a look at this.
Oh, no.
I've spoken to that girl, you know, she said she saw nothing.
But behind all the laughs, there was an experienced newsman.
Seeking permission for Dugan to sit behind him in the body of the court.
Just two of the big stories he covered in almost 40 years at Channel 9, with the Granville rail disaster,
Closely examining a 90-foot section of track from the crash scene.
and the Wally-Mellish siege.
But it is 7 days now since the siege began, and it's clear that it is going to go on, perhaps for a week, perhaps even longer.
There were fires too, and crime.
Ian Ross reporting from Central Court.
Then Ian moved into the news chair on the Today Show. It was a constant sparring match with hosts like Tracy Grimshaw and Steve Liebman.
Finally found the right camera, Steve.
So did I, Roscoe, thank you very much.
And a constant edgy repartee with Monty Dwyer.
Now let's check out the weather. And here's Monty.
A whole new breed of cowboys.
It seems a little unkind to me, Mont. I don't think cows were meant for riding, were they?
They love it. No, they really do enjoy it. Yeah.
They let you know, did they, that they enjoyed it?
Mm.
Have you ever ridden a cow?
I have, as a matter of fact, a couple of times.
It's funny, they always stand. I was going to say, they always stand still until you try to get on it.
It was a breakfast of sharp humour and surprises.
About a police investigation. So I'm going to sneeze.
Like the day Monty invaded Roscoe's home live on
Now,
air.
that is an expensive painting. If you don't mind, put that...
Don't you reckon this looks a lot better, Roscoe? The space we've created for you?
Where's my table and chairs gone?
Roscoe might have started in TV journalism in a time of typewriters, phones with dials, and when brown suits and white jackets were okay. But his humour and grace were timeless.
Must compliment Roscoe on his tie this morning. Looks very, very smart. We like that one, Roscoe.
Yes, that came off the ship, that tie.
Did it?
Oh, right. 3 for $1.
Roscoe decided to call it a day in 2001. We said goodbye, the way TV knows best, with fun and some tears.
Get pissed there.
But just a few months later, Ian was called back to the 9 News desk, helping out with our coverage of big bushfires around Sydney.
Right behind me are fires that are burning out of control.
That stint jolted the 7 network, who needed a Top Gun newsman at the helm, and they wooed Roscoe into heading up their main bulletin.
News comes to you from Macquarie Fields in Sydney's southwest.
But in 2009, after 6 successful years, it was time to retire for good. Now all of us in the TV business, and so many of you out there, are saying goodbye to Ian one last time.
It's time for the news.
Here's Roscoe.
Well, Steve and Tracy, I'm very sorry. I wasn't quite ready.
Oh, really? What, did we catch you?
And Roscoe, neither were we.
A beautiful tribute there by Peter Overton. Well, I'm joined on the line now by Roscoe's 9 Network colleague, Ken Sutcliffe. Ken, appreciate your time on what's obviously a very difficult morning. Really, that tribute piece by Peter Overton said it all, describing Roscoe as an experienced newsman, but also having this gentlemanly wit. He was really the king of wit, wasn't he? But so experienced and so professional as well.
Good morning, and yes, he was. You know, look, we've known this obviously has been coming for a little while. So in many ways you gear up, but it's always sad. But look, he was also wickedly funny. He had a wicked sense of humour. Many things that I could never ever discuss with you on air, but just just a beautiful sense of humour, and he could just cut to the quick with just an economy of words, but also he had that twinkle in the eye. When he had a guttural laugh or he broke up or whatever, and he and I, over a period of time, had a reputation for just, when we break up, we cry. And Roscoe cried a lot because he enjoyed a good belly laugh, but just a beautiful person, good spirit. He was very good to my daughter, actually, when she first came into journalism at Channel 9 all those years ago. And he was almost like a mentor to her. He was never lived in the past, and he was just a good person. Sometimes we're all greater in death than we are in real life, but that's not the case with Roscoe. He was a good person in real life, and he always had a bit of class. There was no doubt about that.
Well, people who worked with him loved him, Ken, and obviously the viewers did as well. What kind of attributes do you think that Ian Ross had that made him warm to the viewers so much?
Well, he had warmth. I mean, that was the key. He had warmth. There was a beautiful friendliness about him. One, he could smile with his eyes, you know, and it was a beautiful sign. He didn't have to have a flashy grin. He could smile with his eyes. He had a great sense of timing and when things were appropriate and inappropriate. But really, I reckon we got to know Roscoe better once he started doing the Today Show, out of the constraints of news. As good a newsman as he was, as you do know, news sometimes has got, you know, you're in the constraints, you've got to get through certain things very quickly and all that sort of stuff. But when he had time to manoeuvre and show his personality like he did on the Today Show, he discovered a whole new audience. And that was wonderful success for him when you think about it, almost in the twilight of his career. In his 50s, he was shining. You know, Roscoe became everybody's best friend. He had that lovely way of, and he had some terrific friends. We had some terrific dinner parties. We had some terrific belly laughs. He could laugh at himself, and you could take the mickey out of him in front of 30, 40, 50 people, whatever it may be, a whole room. He'd cop it sweet, but he'd always remember and get you somewhere else anyway.
And Ken, of course, it takes some media person, doesn't it, to be able to be that great journalist and be able to work within the constraints of the serious news reporting, but also to show your own side as well. And he was so great at that, particularly, as you mentioned, with the banter.
Yes, he was. Look, he never ever thought he was changing the world or anything. He just tried to keep it simple. He tried to be just what he was, just a good person. But he was a good journalist. He wrote really, really well. He wrote with an economy of words. He understood what television was all about, and he could go from, you know, the most dramatic and heartbreaking stories to something very light with a little bit pithy, you know, a little bit left of field, and he could do it. He could do it beautifully. And but you know, he was just a good person away from the box. You know, he was just a good person. He had a terrific social life. He had a lot of good friends. You know, he was never lonely, Roscoe. He was just one of those fellows that people loved to be in his company, and we'll miss him greatly. I haven't seen him for a little while, but I've got to, you know, I will miss him. You know, I spoke to him just recently, and he was wicked to me. You know, he said some really awful things which were just wonderful, and I gave it back in twofold, and he enjoyed it.
Oh, well, Ken Sutcliffe, it's good to talk to you this morning. The memories of Ian Ross, and we understand it's a difficult morning for people in the 9 newsroom, Channel 7 as well, so do appreciate you giving up your time this morning.
Yeah, I'm just happy his suffering's over. That's the main thing.
Yeah, you're right. OK, thanks very much for that, Ken.
Bye.
Well, turning to other news now, and at least 28